Okay, so this is the dub mix and the other 3 channels are muted, so right now we're just listening to channel 1. And let's work our way backward. Channel 1 is getting its signal from this wonderful quad VCA from 4MS. This is a mixer and a quad VCA, one of the most versatile modules in this entire system. And the signal is coming from the Korgasmatron filter, and the envelope is coming from this maths over here. You can see this blinking in time with the music. And let's go back to the filter is being controlled from this maths over here. You can see that that pulse there is changing the filter cutoff. If I shorten this, see what happens? And of course, I could turn up the Q on the filter. That would be funky. I can overdrive the filter until it starts to quack. But I'd rather not do that. This is actually a dual filter, and we're taking the mix output rather than the output of the A filter or the B filter. So if I were to turn this knob, we'd get only the signal from the B filter, which happens to be set to a bandpass. Okay, so when I turn the crossfade knob, we're going to move from filter A to filter B. So I could adjust this. And there's only one CV input. It's controlling this filter in a positive direction and this filter in a negative direction, which is why we're getting this whoop, whoop sound. Can you hear the difference? Mm-hmm. And I can combine these two. Now you're not going to hear much because you're hearing both signals at once. Or I could CV this and do this kind of thing automatically if I wanted to. But let's leave that the way it is. The signal for this filter is coming from the Braids oscillator, which happens to be set to a multi-sawtooth wave. And I'm modulating this knob from, let's see, oh, this envelope over here, yeah. So if I turn the modulation down, it's going to get much simpler. Because this knob fattens the sound. This is a multi-saw. The Braids has many different modes of activity. We're just going to choose some other random Braid sounds here.
Is it a DCO or is it fully analog?
No, this is wildly digital.
Oh, okay.
It has its own built-in filter. It has its own built-in VCA.
Oh, so it's almost sort of a complete synth voice. So.
It's almost a complete synth voice in itself. Now, that's just one element in this composite sound. What we can do now is we can add, let's add the beat, such as it is. The beat is coming in input 3, which comes from this submixer. This is a very nice, excuse me, it's from Sputnik Modular, and it's a 6-channel mixer with a few controls. The pan pots up here are fixed, but the pan pots for channels 1 and 6 are CV-able, which is kind of nice. At the moment, we're only listening to the left channel. As you can see, there's nothing in the right channel. I've got both of these pan full left. But it has 2 inputs. And the inputs are coming from these 2 Bacillus eterioses, or eteriotis, or whatever. I don't know what the plural is. These are very versatile percussion things. Let's turn off this. Let's just listen to this.
These are oscillators for tone sources?
These are oscillators.
Okay.
I don't know whether they're digital or analog. They may be a little of both. But you can see they show you when they're triggering. And each of them has a variety of tone controls. They have, you know, decay, attack, pitch. One of the weaknesses of this particular design is that there's no fine-tune control on the pitch. So to get these in tune, you have to kind of wiggle your fingers at the knob without actually touching it sometimes. It's very delicate, but I've got them in tune, so I'm not going to touch those. But each of these has 4 different modes depending on how you set the switches. Watch this. Okay, we'll pretend we like that.
I'm hearing the clouds there.
Now we're hearing the clouds, that's right.
Yeah.
Before we do that though, perhaps I should take it back one more step from the, okay, we'll listen to the clouds in a minute. I want to direct your attention back over here to where these triggers are coming from. The triggers are coming from the gate storm. This is just an amazingly complex gate generator. I'm using 5 of its outputs at the moment. And you may be able to see the, that each of these 8 lines can have its own length, its own multiplier, so that they move at different speeds. They synchronize with one another based on the clock, which at the moment is at 112. And it has, like, you know, 32 digital memories, all kinds of CV inputs. It's just, it's scary how deep that thing is. The bottom 4 lines can combine. You see where it says and there? It will combine 2 of the top lines with and, or, nor, XOR, etc. logic.
Boolean logic.
Right, yeah. To create even more complicated rhythms than you could get from one line by itself. So that's my newest gate module. Before that, I was using Trigger Riot, which is a very complicated gate module. This thing runs in matrix mode. You can see that these 4 knobs all send their outputs to this output jack, and these 4 knobs all send their outputs to this output jack, so that you can combine things in various ways and get multiple functionality out of it. You can also press this little button here. And let's say I want the pulse width of this knob to be brighter. I've moved over to the pulse width wider. I move to the pulse width knob. And now I can turn the pulse width up higher. Or if I want to, that's maybe not the most fun thing you could do. I could go to the probability page and instead of 100% probability, I could go down to 92% probability or 85% probability, which would cause it to skip some of its output pulses at random. So that's something that Trigger Riot will do that GateStorm won't. So that's what's going on in the rhythm department. At the moment, GateStorm is sending a clock to Trigger Riot, which is in slave mode, so that they stay at the same tempo. And the output of the Trigger Riot is, among other things, running this step sequencer, which is the very first thing we were listening to. You can see that this is just an 8-step sequencer from Make Noise. It's called Pressure Points with Brains. The Brains module is over here. And this is both a keyboard and a step sequencer. If I touch one of the pads, it will hold until I lift my finger. So that's one of the features. There's also an area sensor here. I can use the output from the quote-unquote pressure is up here somewhere. Oh, it's over there. I don't know. And if I slide my finger up, it will change the CV output. So it's a touch-sensitive keyboard after a fashion. And the top row is going to the braids, 1 volt per octave input. And because the braids is a digital oscillator, it has its own quantizer built in, so that the knobs will be playing a nice 12-note per octave scale. But I could change the scale if I want. Let's see. Well, I don't like that note. There we go. This is one of the many peculiar things about a system like this, however. Because these are analog knobs going to a digital quantizer, there are times when one of these knobs will be a half step off because the output from the voltage here is right at the border between two half steps in the oscillator, and so sometimes it will be here, and every once in a while it will drift up slightly and you'll get a half step sharp or a half step flat of what you're expecting. That's just the nature of a modular synthesizer. It's not always 100% predictable. This is a cute little module called a Triad from IntelliGel. It just combines 3 control voltages, and I had to use it to sculpt this CV so that it would mostly go up but occasionally back up and go down. But the signal from there that goes into it is coming from, I think it's this LFO over here, or no, it's this LFO over here. I'm taking a gate signal from this LFO. You can see when the light on the right blinks there. If this is receiving a new clock pulse when that's a high, it will back up. So it's kind of an and situation. If this blinks while this is not getting a new clock pulse, nothing will happen. It will keep going forward. So that allows you to create a little more complex melody than if you were just sequencing through 8 steps at a time.